Hello, my name is Injung Jo. From this fall, I will start my first year PhD study at the Graduate School of Education and Human Development of George Washington University in Washington, D.C. First, background. Although global commitment to education for all has shed a hopeful light, the shadow of urban poverty continues expanding by taking away the learning opportunities of children living in the urban slums. Swelling urban poverty caused 881 million people to live in hyperdense honeycomb housings of urban slums, and the phenomenon has been especially pronounced in developing countries where over half of the urban population live below the national poverty line. In this context, despite the globally pledged slum upgrading policies and programs, the right to education of millions of children living in urban slums has been left unfulfilled. Second objective. This paper aims to contribute to the conceptual understanding of urban education in urban slum contexts. In pursuing the aim, this paper introduces the new analytical framework shaped as a multi-layered concentric circle. The framework guides examining the arrays of barriers that hinder slum children's right to education, thereby enabling one to understand how the environmental relationships influence slum children's learning. To be more specific, the design of this framework was inspired by Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory of 1979, but modifications have been made to present the barriers that influence children's education in the urban slum context. Therefore, the tailored framework consists of multiple layers from which educational barriers are presented at macropolitical educational system, international and personal levels, from the outermost layer to the innermost layer. As for the methodology, this paper employed a desk review through an extensive number of publications, including international and national policy papers, NGOs reports, and empirical studies. Third, educational barriers. As per the analytical framework, different educational barriers at each level that deter children's public education can be understood as follows. First, the macro-political level. Slum upgrading policies and programs at the international and national level has given insufficient attention to promoting education, while investment has been prioritized towards building basic infrastructures in slums such as housing, roads, and public transportation. This lacked attention to education also derived from the urban advantage in global statistics, in which urban areas and urban residents were presented as better off compared to rural areas and people living there. Therefore, a third of the global discourse on urban slum education caused the absence of coherent perspective and clear strategies that could ensure slum children's equitable and quality education. Second, education system level. Slum children who do not hold a birth certificate and or an official household residential paper are unable to access public school education. This is due to the fact that those documents are a precondition to entitle a child to be an eligible beneficiary of public welfare services, including public education. Also, it is reported that public schools sometimes fail to accommodate the slum children due to the limited capacity of the number of schools in urban slums. This consequently caused those children to seek other types of schooling to attend, such as non-formal schools, low-fee paying schools, and religious schools, which sometimes instruct them with non-approved curricula. What is worse, when those slum children attend other forms of education, they may need to be burdened to pay for their learning if the other forms of schools require tuition. Therefore, ironically, although slum children are the most marginalized and therefore need the most help from the government's free public education, In such cases, they are unable to access and benefit from the social welfare service. Third, interpersonal level. Besides a household poverty that pushes children away from educational opportunities, parent maltreatment, such as parent violence and financial abuse of a child, is prevalent in urban slums according to many studies. The situations negatively affect children's psychological well being and tend to lead them to street lives or juvenile delinquency. Classmates bullying and name calling toward slum children are other common problems in many slums. For example, in Brazil, children from favelas, that is known as slums, got bullied by their classmates as being called poor, dirty, and blacker. It was reported that such peer influence entails slum children's high risk of mental and behavioral problems as consequences, such as anxiety, depression, aggressive, and oppositional behavior. Another interpersonal problem is discrimination by some school teachers who showed a lack of sympathy towards the slum children's life circumstances and treated them as if they are trouble in class. Teachers' attitudes subsequently exacerbated slum children's low self esteem and low academic motivation. Fourth, personal level. Some slum children do not value school education as they perceive that schooling does not play an important or instrumental role to determine or result in a better future livelihood. In such cases, the children tend to have low academic motivation and end up dropping out of school. Other studies show that outdated school curricula and the culture of giving bribes for employment negatively affect slum children, shaping their view that schooling is seemingly not necessary or useful. Moreover, slum children's poor physical and mental health are negatively associated with their learning challenges. Not only are slum children susceptible to waterborne diseases and malnutrition, but also they are found to have a high rate of mental health problems. For instance, in the slums in Bandung, Indonesia, 33% of children were found undergoing serious emotional disorders. Thus, these complex health challenges of the slum children consequently hinder their full engagement in learning. Fourth, looking forward and conclusion. To address these multi-level educational barriers, this paper proposes the following suggestions as future directions to address the slum children's challenges in education and ensure their right to quality education. First, develop a global discourse on slum education to increase the visibility of slum children's educational deprivations and address them with tailored interventions. To be specific, a reliable profile based on urban slums, such as number of out-of-school children, dropouts in urban slums, should be devised as the first step to developing such a global discourse. The statistical figures would increase the visibility of the educational needs of the urban slum children who are often neglected in global policies. This, in turn, would help raise the international community's awareness about the necessity of formulating urban slum specific policies and strategies in cooperation. The globally raised awareness, in turn, would entail the creation of global initiatives on urban slum education for supporting slum children with tailored approaches and strategies. Second, provide legal support, such as helping slum households to obtain a birth certificate of their children. The document will secure children's entitlement to public education services as well as other social welfare services that support their learning continuity, including school vouchers or conditional cash transfers. Therefore, local governments must take an active leadership role to raise parents' awareness about the value of legal documents, birth certificates here. Promoting campaigns in collaboration with community or religious leaders would be one of the possible ways to do so. Local governments also should be responsible for providing adequate step assistance for slum dwellers who may not know how to apply for a birth certificate or the ways to receive other basic public services such as school enrollment and healthcare services. Third, expand educational investment to increase school infrastructure's capacity in urban slums for enabling students to access public education. New schools would meet the demands of educational opportunities by slum children, whose number has far exceeded the admission capacity of schools located in urban slums. Provided the expanded school capacity in urban slums, slum children would not face the necessity of seeking other forms of schools for learning any longer. Fourth, offer teacher training to enhance teachers' social and emotional capacity for treating slum children with empathy, compassion, and respect. Recognizing that some school teachers have insufficient knowledge about slum children's hardships from their home environment, teachers visiting students' homes is recommended. Teachers' home visits would be one of the effective ways to witness students' lifestyles and cultivating empathy by having a chance to directly interact with the slum children and their parents. Fifth, pursue an ecological approach with different stakeholders in cooperation. Taking an ecological approach based on intersectoral collaborative actions should be promoted to combat slum children's complex challenges. In other words, stakeholders in different sectors who are related to and or influence children's learning and development should seek strategies to provide a comprehensive support system for child development. Furthermore, building a trusting network among parents, teachers, community is an important part of the ecological approach to creating an optimal education environment for slum education and slum children. For instance, the local community could provide parents of slum children with lectures on preventing family violence and fostering optimal parenting. Teachers also could implement parent-teacher conferences and meetings to share both sides' concerns about slum children, share children's academic progress, and more. Thus, the parent-teachers community network would contribute to creating their shared responsibility and synergizing their efforts for realizing a child-friendly learning environment. Lastly, revamp the current policies and programs to reflect slum children's voices, thereby ensuring the best interest of these children. That is, in order to pursue responsive policies and implement effective interventions that meet the best interest of the slum children, children's perspectives, voices, and lived experiences regarding concerns and issues should be taken into due consideration in the policymaking process. Children's inputs would complement the limitations that may arise when policymakers as outsiders devise policies based on their interpretations with a lack of contextual understanding of the urban slums. In that sense, it is also recommended to involve children's decision-making and participation in the process across policy and program planning, delivery, and evaluation to support their agency and respect their right to take civic action. Above all, this report has illuminated that the global community, governments, teachers, parents, and civil society have exerted profound impact on slum children's education. Hence, these duty bearers must take a mutual accountability to build a conducive education environment for slum children by bringing necessary financial and human resources. When their shared commitment and efforts are converged, slum children's right to quality education would be fulfilled, and the children would possibly reach their potential by having the stakeholders' holistic support. Thank you.